Chapter 35. Leadership without drama. Leadership is often imagined as a form of projection. A person steps forward, speaks confidently, makes decisions quickly, and imposes direction on uncertainty. The image is theatrical. Even when it is not loud, it contains a kind of visible intensity. People associate leadership with dominance, charisma, emotional fire, the ability to bend a room through personality. This is one kind of influence, and in certain moments it can move a group. It is also fragile. It depends on maintaining an emotional posture. It often requires conflict to remain central, because conflict is where force looks impressive. Leadership without drama is not built this way. It does not seek the room's attention. It earns the room's reliance. A steady leader is rarely the most interesting person in the room. They are often the most useful. They're the one who remains intact when the situation becomes unpleasant. They do not add emotional volatility to an already volatile environment. They do not treat pressure as a stage for proving themselves. They do not inflate the stakes through their own anxiety. Their presence reduces noise, and because it reduces noise, other people can think. Thinking is the first requirement for collective function. Most teams fail not from lack of intelligence, but from emotional contagion. One person panics and others become vigilant. One person becomes defensive and others become guarded. One person becomes cynical and others lose motivation. Groups are not only rational systems, they are nervous systems. Their internal state matters. A dramatic leader keeps the group activated. They keep urgency alive because urgency makes them seem necessary. It also exhausts the organization. People become reactive. They focus on not getting blamed rather than on building what is needed. A steady leader produces the opposite effect. They create a field where responsibility can exist without fear. Fear is the true enemy of execution because fear narrows perception and distorts judgment. Under fear, people hoard information, avoid risk, hide mistakes, delay decisions, and perform for approval rather than for outcome. Many leaders unintentionally create fear by making everything personal. A missed deadline becomes a moral failure. A mistake becomes an indictment. A question becomes an annoyance. The leader's mood becomes a variable everyone must manage. In such environments, work becomes emotional labor. Leadership without drama removes this labor. It does not remove accountability, it removes volatility. Volatility is the leader's emotional inconsistency, the unpredictability that forces others to scan constantly. When people are scanning, they are not thinking about the work, they are thinking about how to survive the leader. They choose safe actions, not correct actions. They speak carefully, not clearly. They aim for not being noticed rather than for building something worthy. The leader may interpret this as laziness. Often it is simply fear shaped by the environment. A steady leader is predictable in the ways that matter. They are consistent in their standards and calm in their delivery. This calm is not passivity. It is not softness. It is control of the self rather than control of others. A leader who cannot control themselves will attempt to control the room. They will use urgency to force movement. They will use anger to create compliance. They will use fear to prevent dissent. The result may be immediate motion, but it is not durable. It creates a culture where people follow to avoid punishment rather than to achieve excellence. Punishment is a poor long-term engine. It creates resentment and burnout. Steadiness creates a different engine, trust. Trust is not admiration. It is the belief that the leader will not make the environment emotionally unsafe. When trust exists, people bring bad news earlier. They admit mistakes sooner. They take responsibility without needing to hide. They ask questions without fear of humiliation. They become less defensive and more direct. This produces a healthier flow of information, and information is what decision-making requires. Leadership without drama does not rely on force because it does not need to. It receives information and therefore can steer. This steering is quieter than command, yet it is more real. It is built on clarity and follow-through. Many people think leadership is mainly vision. Vision matters, but vision without execution is theater. Execution depends on rhythm, on clear expectations, on problems being faced directly rather than dramatized. A steady leader helps the team face reality without emotional inflation. When something goes wrong, they do not perform disappointment. They do not seek a villain. They locate the issue and move toward repair. They treat the situation as a situation, rather than as an insult. This is the deep advantage of emotional discipline in leadership. It keeps the leader from being personally addressed by events. A dramatic leader feels attacked by problems. They respond as though the team is betraying them, as though the world is undermining them, as though incompetence is a personal affront. Their reaction becomes part of the problem. They begin managing their own feelings in public. The team manages the leader's feelings in private. The organization becomes an ecosystem of emotional containment. Work slows, people become cautious, the leader grows more frustrated, and the cycle intensifies. Leadership without drama breaks this cycle by refusing to make feelings central. The leader feels what they feel, but they do not make it everyone's burden. This is what command looks like when it is rooted in steadiness. It is not loud, it is not reactive. It does not rely on fear to move people. It relies on clarity and consequence. Consequence is different from punishment. Punishment is emotional. It is often disproportionate. It aims to satisfy the leader's anger. Consequence is structural. It aims to protect the organization's standards. A steady leader enforces consequence without theatrics. They do not enjoy it. They do not weaponize it. They treat it as part of maintaining coherence. Coherence is the leader's real job. The leader holds the standard when the team is tired, distracted, or uncertain. Holding the standard does not mean demanding perfection. It means keeping reality visible. It means ensuring that drift does not become culture. Drift happens quietly. Deadlines slide. Small errors become normal. Meetings become vague. Accountability becomes emotional rather than factual. The steady leader notices drift early because their attention is not consumed by drama. They are not constantly reacting. They have bandwidth to see patterns. They can respond while the issue is still small enough to correct cleanly. Clean correction is an underrated form of care. Many leaders believe care is expressed through warmth or encouragement. Those matter at times. There is another kind of care, the care of keeping the environment stable, the care of not dumping emotional volatility on the team, the care of making decisions without panic, the care of treating people as adults rather than as children to be frightened into compliance. Steady leadership is often felt by the team as a relief, even if the leader does not feel especially kind. The relief comes from predictability. People can focus. Focus is what makes people competent. Competence is what makes work satisfying. Drama steals focus, and when focus is stolen, competence declines. When competence declines, satisfaction declines. People then disengage. Leaders interpret disengagement as laziness and apply more pressure. Pressure without clarity produces more drama, not more performance. Steadiness breaks this loop by creating an environment where focus can exist. This is why the most effective leaders are often less emotionally expressive in moments of stress, not because they feel nothing, but because they know that their expression becomes part of the team's weather. A leader's nervous system is contagious. A leader's tone becomes culture. If a leader becomes frantic, the organization becomes frantic. If a leader becomes resentful, the organization becomes cautious and political. If a leader becomes cynical, the organization loses seriousness. Steady leadership is in part the discipline of recognizing that your inner state is not only yours when you are in command. It becomes a shared atmosphere. Atmosphere decides how people behave when you are not present. This is where leadership without drama becomes truly powerful. Force requires proximity. It works when the leader is watching. Steadiness creates internalized standards. People behave with coherence even when the leader is absent, because the environment has been made stable enough for coherence to become normal. The leader does not have to chase everything. They do not have to be the engine of urgency. The system begins operating with its own rhythm. Rhythm is what replaces drama. In dramatic organizations, emergencies are frequent because nothing is maintained steadily. Work is done in bursts, and between bursts there is drift. Drift accumulates until it becomes crisis. Crisis then becomes the moment when leaders feel alive. They step in, solve loudly, and are praised. The culture learns to wait for crisis because crisis is where attention arrives. This is one of the most destructive leadership patterns, rewarding breakdown with presence. Leadership without drama refuses to reward breakdown. It rewards process, clarity, and early correction. This kind of leadership can look unimpressive to outsiders because it does not produce spectacle. It produces stability. Stability is not exciting. It is productive. It allows people to work without constant emotional disturbance. It allows good people to stay good rather than being slowly exhausted into mediocrity. It allows problems to be addressed without turning them into narratives about incompetence and betrayal. Steady command also changes how authority is perceived. People often associate authority with being feared or being adored. The steady leader does not chase either. They become respected because they are reliable. They do not play favorites. They do not shift standards based on mood. They do not punish honesty. They do not reward flattery. They say what is true. They do what they say. Over time, this creates a form of authority that does not need to announce itself. It is felt. It is the authority of someone who can be trusted to remain themselves under pressure. This is rare enough that it often becomes magnetic. People prefer working under steady leaders because steadiness protects their attention. It protects their dignity. It protects their ability to think. A leader who does not humiliate, who does not explode, who does not sulk, who does not require constant emotional management, becomes, quietly, a safe place to work. Safety does not mean comfort. It means the absence of unnecessary threat. Unnecessary threat is what drama produces. Drama turns ordinary friction into fear. It turns feedback into humiliation. It turns mistakes into spectacle. It keeps people braced. Braced people cannot build well for long. They can sprint. They cannot sustain. Leadership without drama creates sustained performance not through pressure, but through stability. It makes the work less psychologically expensive. In the end, this is what command through steadiness truly means. It means you do not need to dominate the room to lead it. You do not need to perform certainty to create direction. You do not need force to create movement. You need inner governance strong enough that your emotions do not become the team's weather. You need attention clear enough that problems remain proportional. You need consistency strong enough that standards do not fluctuate. A leader who can do that becomes something many people have never experienced, an authority that does not demand emotional payment. And in that absence of payment, the organization gains what drama could never produce: clear thinking, clean execution, and the quiet momentum of people who are no longer spending half their energy managing the leader instead of building the work.